about bike setup, guys, this is my 2-stroke. It's a 24 300XC. It's got different plastics just because different plastics are fun. But let's talk a little bit about the bike. The bike really is mostly stock. I got different wheels and tires on this bike. So we got a full moose setup, which is really important for the riding that I like to do. We got A60 wheels, which are just a little bit stronger. Not that the stock wheels are bad, but the A60 wheels just give you that extra strength to really slam into stuff. Suspension is fully stock. The suspension on these 24s is actually really, really good. I have very few complaints. I'm not in a rush to change that. And then the plastics are custom. The skid plate is a TM design skid plate, which is great. I got pro taper bars. That's just my personal preference, a little flatter and a little bit lower. And then yeah, we got the KTM Power Parts low seat. The low seat is not there because I'm short. It's there to be able to jump off the bike in case you make a mistake. Think of a little bit like a trials bike. Trials bikes have low seats, so you can swing that leg over and just jump off. I'm running this right now. I test tires for my YouTube channel. We're running this Geomax Enduro EN91EX. I'm loving this tire for those hard impacts and those real technical situations. Great tire. I'm about to release a video on that tire. But besides that, the bike is, the bike's got 40 hours, pretty stock, and I'm just loving these TBIs. They really are awesome bikes, and it's just really hard to complain too much about them. So another addition that I've added to this 24 KTM is the motion foot pegs. This is a trail model with 90 durometer bushing and the number 6 cleats. Been running these about 2 months out here on my tracks, and I'm loving them. Tons of traction onto the boot. I run these Alpenstar Tech 10s, and I get a ton of traction. I get less wear on my boot, and I'm just loving them, guys. I obviously want to test them more, but so far so good. I couldn't be happier. So a little bit about the suspension on this bike. On the 24 KTMs, the XCs, it's a little stiff right when you get it out of the box, but I promise you it softens up, and it gets really good really fast. Coming to the other side of the bike, we just got a couple different things. Stock pipe. This stock pipe is really exceptional. It's really small in 2024, and it doesn't get smashed on things like the previous generation. I love that stock pipe. We also got this aftermarket brake tip on the rear brake. I don't like to use the rear brake a lot, but having that extra tip is just it's a guarantee that I'm not going to miss it. Works really well in conjunction with these trail motion foot pegs. Super happy with that. If you guys have any questions about bike setup, please put them in the comments below. Also check out my Instagram page, 2Smoking 4Stroking on Instagram. I've just got some cool shots of what I do out here, and yeah, it's just a visual page. So just a lot of fun. So check it out, guys. Hi guys, we're back out here at Corazon Ranch, and we're gonna do a little discussion about bike setup, specifically around the handlebars, lever areas, which is one of the areas I like to set up right away when I get a new bike. When I get a new bike, I like to really just start with the handlebars and the position of the levers, the front brake lever and the clutch lever. So in enduro riding, and especially enduro cross riding, on gas bikes, you always want to have your fingers on the levers ready to actuate them, right? For me, my preference is I like to run the levers in such that my primary middle, index finger is almost at the end of the lever, and then my middle finger, if I have to bring it in, is touching this ball. That is in more than most people, but that's where I like it. And that gives me the most leverage and control over that lever. It also happens to protect the lever in case of a crash because the lever is really far in. And I do that also on the clutch side. So let's start with lever position. I like to set my levers at a good angle where I can stand and actuate them. I like to have the lever such that my index finger is almost at the end of the lever, and then my middle finger, if I have to bring it in, it's kind of riding on the ball. So I really am on the furthest part of this lever. That gives me the most leverage and control. And I like. All right, guys, let's talk a little bit about bars and bar position. So on almost all bikes, you have at least 2 positions for mounting the bars to the triple clamps. So whether you're slightly forward or slightly back, this KTM has 2 positions. Some of the older KTMs have actually 4 positions. Basically what that does is as you move the bars forward, you put more weight bias on the front. And as you move the bars back, you'll take away weight from the front. And it's really just a preference and a control thing depending on what you're riding. Personally, I like to run the bars slightly forward. That gives me more control over the front tire. It gives me more control when I'm doing wheelies and I'm hitting these obstacles. And then another adjustment is actually the roll of the bars. So where the bars are pinched onto the clamps in this direction. That kind of does the same thing. If you roll the bars forward, guys, you'll put more weight on the front wheel. If you roll the bars back, you'll bring weight onto the rear wheel. And some of that is a preference thing, but you want to find a good neutral place. If you roll those bars forward a lot, the bike will start to feel really unstable. If you roll the bars back too much, you'll start to feel like you're riding the back of the bike. Let's talk a little bit about shift lever position, guys. So there's lots of opinions on where that shift lever should be relative to your foot peg. I like to set my shift lever a little bit above flat from the foot peg. Some guys run it high and that protects the shift lever. I think universally you don't want it any lower than this because you'll start to catch rocks. Generally for this type of riding, guys, I'm staying in second or third gear. I'm not doing a lot of shifting and I don't need to do a lot of shifting. So I'm on the balls of my feet. If I need to shift, I pick up my foot, I make the shift and I come back to the foot peg all the time. I don't need to hang out here because I'm not shifting that much in this type of riding, guys. I like to teach standing on the balls of your feet. This is your basic position. Balls of your feet does a couple things. It keeps the front light. It also lets you be very dynamic on the bike. It lets you drop your heels, which is a very strong position when you start hitting some of these obstacles. And if you need to get to the brake or the shift, then you pick up your foot and you actuate the brake and you bring it back to the balls of your feet. I can't emphasize enough, guys, how important it is to ride on the balls of your feet for so many reasons. I can talk a lot about front tires, but just know this, that there are basically mud tires and then there are hard pack tires. I like to pick an intermediate front tire. That usually typically works pretty well for me. But I think where the real conversation is whether you run tubes or tubeless or mooses. Tubes can work fine if you keep the PSIs above 10 or so. You might not pinch flat. Out here where the speeds are bigger, I'm just done with tubes. I like to run mooses and then just not worry about pinch flatting. So tubes will work well. They give you a really good feel. They're really easy to change. They're really inexpensive. But really mooses are just the robust solution for just not having to worry about flatting out when you're riding. Tubeless is also pretty good and can work well in the front, but you do have to be aware of slicing your tire. If you slice your tire, you're going to have to plug it. So there's lots of options. I don't think there's any wrong option. I just think it depends on what you're trying to do. So now that we've covered the front, guys, let's talk about the back. So on the back, you have the same options, right? You can run a tube, you can run a moose, or you can run tubeless. Out here, guys, where I'm riding on this bike, I'm running a 140 tire, so I'm just running a moose. This is really an Enduro setup, but you don't have to run mooses. On the rear is a little bit more forgiving than the front. You can ride out a bike with a flat tire. You can just do different things with the back. Again, I think it's the same trade-offs, right? Tubes are simple, they're inexpensive, they're easy to change. You definitely can't run low PSI on a tube in the rear. You will flat out pretty quickly. But you don't necessarily have to run a moose if you can't afford it or you don't want to deal with the headache of changing it out. I personally think tubeless in the back is a good option. You can run really low PSIs and you can always ride out a tubeless rear tire if you get stuck. So lots of options, guys. I like to come right through the middle. I like to be really conscious of my foot pegs and where the rocks are going to be.